I would like to understand what's your point of view on how AI will replace like the jobs.
Yeah.
And what's the near future and how humans will be impacted by the AI.
I think what I can, what I think we're going to see in like 2025 is I think it's going to become normal to interact with AI agents.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be normal that you're going to call your bank or your telco and you're going to talk to an agent.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a great experience because you're going to, no waiting in line, you're going to talk to someone immediately. And they're going to be built in such a way that they can do most of the things that you would want it to do. And if they can't, they can pass you to a human.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a great win for consumers.
Yeah. The real capability of a good like Salesforce expert is to learn how to learn, to have the capability to be able to research the information and find the answer without having saved it in the memory. We should evaluate an individual based on the capacity to adapt and research the information.
Yeah, I agree. I think generally speaking, if I'm interviewing someone, it's much more about the character and the individual than it is the specific knowledge. Like there's certain kind of things we'd look for. So if you're a consultant, we want to make sure that you kind of have the core kind of consulting skills.
You are like the CTO of Cloudworks. And you work with Toby, that is the CEO.
Yep.
Could you explain how these different roles differ?
I think what's important in starting any company is you want to have the right mix of individuals who together have the right mix of skills. Everyone in the A-Team was totally different. And it was the fact that they were so different but all worked well in a team that made them the A-Team, right? It wasn't just like 5 perfect people. It was 5 very different people who together have the right skills. So Toby in many ways is kind of my counterpart. And so it's that combination of the skills that together we've always been a very effective team.
Hello everyone, today I'm with Chris Baldock and we will speak about Cloudworks. Chris is the CTO, co-founder of Cloudworks, a Salesforce practice that has been around for
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
Chris, for those who don't already know you in the Salesforce ecosystem, could you introduce yourself and speak a bit about what is Cloudworks?
Yeah, all right, cool. Hey everyone, my name's Chris Baldock from Cloudworks. I'm very tired today and I have a coffee stain on my shirt. So maybe not in the best original starting point for a podcast, but I'm cool. I don't care. I'm happy to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Who am I? Who's Cloudworks? I am originally from England, UK.
Yeah.
I moved out here about 11, 12 years ago. The time just like goes by so quickly. That was with my girlfriend, now wife. Now I've got 2 kids. I've got a house. So like, firmly here now.
Yeah.
And I came over here to join a company called Cloud Sherpas. Which kind of, I don't know, I like to think a little bit famous in this ecosystem. Like, 10 years ago, Cloud Sherpas was just an amazing place to be if you were a Salesforce consultant. And so I joined them as just like a junior technical consultant at the time. And it was just a really cool place to be, just really nice, smart people. A whole bunch of CTAs came out of there.
Yeah.
And then, look, long story short, Cloud Sherpas became Accenture. I did a little stint with another company called SaaS Focus. That got picked up by Cognizant. And then I had an opportunity to join Toby, who I've known for like 10 years since Cloud Sherpas, as kind of like a second round of co-founders for Cloudworks. Yeah. And then we've been doing that for like 6 years now. When me and Toby joined, we were literally, we had some, an amazing but very small team in India. Most of which is still with us today, but we practically had 0 people in Australia. And so we've kind of built it up since then. And it's been quite the ride.
And I was wondering, so you are from the UK. Were you already Salesforce related back in the UK, or everything happened since you arrived in Australia?
So I used to be part of Accenture in the UK. I'm part of a really great team there. So that's kind of why I started my journey. And I was about maybe like a year and a half, maybe 2 years into my Salesforce journey. And then my wife, who's half Australian, wanted to move over here.
Okay.
And I just like the idea of having an adventure and just kind of living somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, that must be a big deal to move over there.
Yeah. Well, as you know, you did this yourself a few years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a real journey, I guess, to move to Australia. But I believe for you, it was beneficial in a way.
Yeah.
Like, how did you find you grew as a human being by moving in Australia on the personal side, but as well on the maybe like career side? Like, did your vision open in a way?
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, it's funny. You can never compare, right? Like, I mean, who knows what would have happened if we stayed in the UK?
Yeah.
But I feel Australia has been really good for me in my career.
Yeah.
I think the first thing was like immediately obvious is just it kind of everything was like fresh and new and exciting again. You know, like I think people don't really realize how, you stay somewhere for a while and you kind of, just end up doing the same sorts of things and stuck in the same kind of habits. And then you move country and then everything is like new and fresh again.
Yeah. And need a bit of time to adapt as well.
Yeah.
And I've heard like the Salesforce UK market is very crowded and established from just my understanding. And Australia is quite new still, maybe not anymore because now it's been like 10, 15 years. But did you have this feeling that like the Salesforce market was like fresh and slowly building? Everything was, could you tell us about that? The difference between the UK where everything is pretty much established and the Australia where it was a new race to become like the best partner and it was all of that was brand new.
Yeah. So I definitely got a sense of that. I was relatively junior in my career. And so I was looking at it from a different perspective than I'd say how I'd look at it now.
Okay.
But yeah, no, definitely the Australian market compared to the UK market back then, probably still now was a relatively small market, which I think maybe in part meant that over here there was a lot of kind of smaller kind of mid-sized players.
Okay.
And the market was less dominated by the large GSIs, Accenture, Deloitte, that kind of stuff, which is great because I joined what I believe was the biggest practice at the time, which was, I certainly felt that way, which was Cloud Sherpas, but they weren't a GSI. They were like a mid-market.
Yeah.
And so you had a lot of I don't know, it has kind of like a different feel to it.
Yeah.
They kind of brought their own kind of energy and culture and it just it was just a great space to be like 10 years ago.
And do you feel like the culture that you learned or that you enjoyed in a way at Cloud Sherpas?
Cloud Sherpas, yeah.
Like, did you bring it back in a way in Cloudworks, or are you inspired by like this culture of creating like a welcoming and a warm environment for everyone?
Yeah.
Could you tell us like how this like inspired you and today how in a way like you push it back to Cloudworks?
Yeah, no, look, I think that's absolutely true. And I think it's no surprise that, both myself and Toby, my colleague and CEO, we actually met on the first day and we had lunch together, like in Cloud Sherpas back in the day, right? And I think we were both really felt at home in that kind of environment. Yeah. And I think there's a lot that we learned from there. And absolutely, so when it came to opportunity to sort of define that ourselves, I think a lot of that inspiration came from the really good things that the leaders in Cloudworks, Cloud Sherpas, sorry, I get confused, did all those years ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's very interesting. And so over there, like you were like, I guess like a technical consultant at very first of your career. Like what was like the product that you were like mastering or like the range of products? What was your specialty?
Yeah, nice. So something that's interesting for me to think back on, hopefully interesting to other people, is 10 years ago, to be a consultant expert in Salesforce looked very different to what it looked today.
Oh, really?
So 10 years ago, if you had 5 certifications, you were kind of a big deal.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Whereas like now, 5 certifications is kind of nothing. And back then there wasn't many certifications. You had your admin and you had your developer, and then you had your sales and service cloud, and that was kind of about it.
Yeah.
And all the other stuff, all the architect ones and all of the other kind of product ones, they all came later. And so, so the domain was much smaller. I think so was there was less depth and less breadth to be across.
Yeah.
And it was also kind of a smaller, I think, more tight knit community. You're much more likely to know a greater portion of that ecosystem.
Okay.
Whereas kind of now, the ecosystem is huge. So you only kind of know small pockets of it.
I think my view on the Salesforce certification is that, because I don't know before, but now after a range of certification, if you show that you have like 10 certification, you don't need, in my view, to push to the there is a moment like once you have the base, people acknowledge that, okay, Salesforce, and that should be it. Do you know what I mean?
I feel the same way. I rightly or wrongly, I haven't gotten a single certification since I became a CTA a few years ago. Partly because it was, I think, so tiring and so much hard work to become a CTA. I probably just wanted the break.
Yeah.
But partly, I think I just realized I don't really need any more certs. Like, I think there's a lot of value in certs. I think it's a good way, a good kind of like piece of structured learning to learn a new thing. But I think it's really then just for you at that stage.
Yeah. And I guess like two things that I realize, I guess like the certification is also like a marketing tool that Salesforce used to promote themselves. And by having like multiple one, like we lose a bit of like understanding how hard it is in a way, because I feel like there is a range of certification that are accessible. And also I feel like your time should be invested in other area of your professional development after you reach a stage of a minimum of certification.
I think that's true. And I think it depends on where you're going. So I think if you want to move to becoming an architect, the things you need to learn and focus on may be different. I think you can always benefit from having all of that depth for everything that you do, but more realistically, as an architect, you kind of expected to go up one level of abstraction, and it's more about your breadth. And you're kind of looking at things as sort of like systems and the main things they do and how they interact. And so the type of knowledge you need is maybe, yes, you could benefit from a cert, but it's you don't necessarily need to go to that much detail.
And I saw that like mostly like during jobs interview. So this is probably a personal story, but you can let me know what's your view on that. It was basically, you will do some interview where people will ask you like very technical and details question. I was thinking about personalization, like asking like the function that is doing something. But I think like the real capability of a good like Salesforce expert is to learn how to learn, to have the capability to be able to research the information and find the answer without having saved it in the memory.
Totally.
And I find like I've spoke with a few practice in my career that will evaluate based on current knowledge of the specific information, where in fact, in my view, and that's just my view, we should evaluate an individual based on the capacity to adapt and research the information.
I agree. I think generally speaking, if I'm interviewing someone, it's much more about the character and the individual than it is the specific knowledge. Like there's certain kind of things we'd look for. So if you're a consultant, we want to make sure that you kind of have the core kind of consulting skills, right? Like you understand how it is that you organize a particular project, how you elicit requirements, run workshops, process documentation. We want to make sure that stuff is in line. But yeah, I agree. I mean, the only time I'd go like really deep into a specific technology is maybe if that one person was being hired as a particular domain expert. So domain expert in like CPQ or I don't know, some part of Marketing Cloud, then I think that becomes more relevant. But I agree. If what you're trying to build yourself as is like a more general architect or consultant, then I think it's less about having super depth in everything, and it's more about just knowing your craft and knowing like you said, like how to learn and how to adapt.
And that's interesting because you are like the CTO of Cloudworks, and you work with Toby, that is the CEO. Could you explain how this different role differ and what is a CEO in a Salesforce practice? Because it's not very common.
Like a CTO or CEO?
A CTO.
CTO. Okay, that's a good question. That's a good question. And I have maybe a slightly unconventional answer to it. So first of all, part of, I think what's important in starting any company is you want to have the right mix of individuals who together have the right mix of skills.
Okay.
Like I'll use a metaphor that actually, I guess my CEO kind of Toby uses, which is like, you know, that like old program on TV called the A-Team? It's like an old American show. No, too old. Okay, there's this like really old series in the 70s. Probably everyone's heard this metaphor before. And what was interesting about this series is like everyone in the A-Team was totally different.
Okay.
And it was the fact that they were so different but all worked well in a team that made them the A-Team, right? It wasn't just like 5 perfect people. It was 5 very different people who together have the right skills.
Yeah.
So Toby in many ways is kind of my counterpart. So he's just like the most natural and enthusiastic kind of relationship builder. He just loves being amongst people and meeting people and going out and all that kind of stuff. Whereas but he's kind of like that's his skill set. That's kind of his interest, right? He's got this great, just like very genuine interest in people. Whereas me, I'm just naturally more introverted. I really like puzzles and solving puzzles and learning things. And so we always worked well but I also like a bit of showmanship. I enjoyed doing this, right? And I enjoy kind of being on stage, and I kind of also enjoy kind of getting out, but not necessarily. Right?
I know it.
And so it's that combination of the skills that together we've always been a very effective team. Like he was great at kind of building those relationships with potential customers, and then I was really good at kind of getting in there and impressing and quickly solving problems, building confidence, and it was that kind of combination that worked really well.
Okay, and so you feel like as like so basically like Toby and yourself are very complementary.
Yes,
in a way. Like and you met him at one of the practice that you were working.
The Cloud Sherpas. So that was literally first day of Cloud Sherpas. He was hired into sales, and I was hired into the delivery team, and we were both there on the same day. And so they were like, "Oh, hey, Toby, you should take Chris out for lunch." And then we got lunch.
Yeah,
sat on the lawn outside and had a sandwich. It was nice.
I feel that's super interesting to see that there is sort of generation of Salesforce practice.
Yeah.
Like for example, Cloud Shopper was maybe like the first generation, and born from Cloud Shopper, like it's probably Cloudworks and a few other practice.
So many, yeah.
I feel it's a very common pattern that people met at one practice and then created their own, and it goes on and on.
I think that's true kind of like in every market. I mean, I know that's certainly true in like America, UK, and here, and I'm sure it's just true. Like you have a company that for whatever combination of reasons does really well, attracts really great people, ultimately sells. And then I think it's natural that then kind of, leaves a bit of a gap and an opportunity.
Yeah.
And then, some people take that opportunity and try to do their own thing and see if they can make it work.
And also I'm wondering, so like we have seen like so many different like Salesforce practice that were, I'm not sure, but like a bit similar to Cloudworks in terms of size. Like I would say like 50 to 200 people. Like and during COVID, like there is acquisition of a lot of this practice that I'm thinking about Sydney. And how did Cloudworks face the COVID-19? And also because Cloudworks is still Cloudworks today, what was the impact of that, and how did you succeed in like handling the boats like during this storm in a way? Because I feel like a lot of acquisition that happened during COVID-19 was that it was hard as a standalone practice to survive during this period of time. And there is like, this happened, like this is my understanding.
Yeah.
What's your view on that?
So interestingly, our experience is slightly different from that, which is, so we basically, we kicked off this business and we were still very, very small when COVID-19 happened. For whatever combination of reasons, and there's probably multiple reasons, like we had a few kind of good anchor accounts, customers who are willing to take us on, who are still customers today. But, that's certainly a component. But COVID years were actually good for us, at least those kind of like first two. And we were able to really grow a lot during that period of time. But then shortly after COVID came, I think it was about, I don't know, roughly speaking, 2022 to 24, kind of like those 2 years, like those were tough years. And we managed to sail through them. But it was very interesting coming off the back of, 2020 to 2022, where we were growing like crazy,
Yeah.
like hockey stick growth. And as a consequence of that, we started to, I guess, get a bit bold and start to maybe hire a little bit ahead of the curve and sort of assume certain things would happen.
Yeah.
And then there was this moment, and I'm terrible with dates, so I can't say when all of a sudden things just froze. And customers wanted to delay projects, cancel projects. And that was like a really tough, like 18 months or 24 months or so that happens. And so like sailing through that was tough. And there was definitely a number of practices that at that time sold or essentially kind of went bankrupt because it was tough. Fortunately, again, I'm terrible with dates, but it feels like the last kind of 6 to 12 months, things have really turned around. And at least for us right now, things have never been better.
Yeah, that's a very good thing. And also I saw that you started to not diversify, but also search for new products and like markets. So for example, I'm thinking about the marketing cloud practice. Yeah. And also the
data and AI.
Snowflake.
Oh, Snowflake. Yeah, the like, kind of data and AI practice.
Okay. Yeah. So could you explain like how did you came up this idea of like expanding like to new product and services and just cool. In general?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's always a bit of a bet, a gamble when you have a practice. Yeah. Or when you're trying to kind of diversify and grow into different things. Like you never really know. You kind of take a punt and you think, okay, well, I think this makes sense, so let's give it a go. And we've done it with some things that for whatever reason didn't work out, and we've done it with others that did. Yeah. So marketing is certainly one of them. The reason for that was there's kind of a fewfold. It was kind of the nature of accounts that we were working with, and we were more and more kind of bumping into competition who had that marketing arm, and that was a component of the design solution. Okay. And so we kind of made a call. It's like, okay, well, look, we do everything else. We want to be able to fully service these accounts. We should probably try building our own practice. So that was that one. And then the data and AI stuff, it was partly strategic and it was partly good fortune in that we had good relationships with, I guess, John, who's the kind of the CEO, the co-founder of that practice, who you've met as well. Yeah. And so we've known him all the way back to Cloud Sherpas. So he was back then as well.
So he was working there as well?
In the Brisbane office, but we knew him from back there, me and Toby. And I think one thing that has been a real eye opener or kind of learning from starting your own practice is relationships. So It always basically kind of, you're a good person, you do the good things, you kind of have a good reputation, it comes back to you. And so many of our kind of clients or just kind of people we've hired have been off the back of relationships or doing an event or doing something and kind of impressing upon people. So that always seems to come back. And so,
that's crazy when we think about it.
Yeah. Oh man, it's everything. And all that, I mean, Toby, his thing is all about relationship selling. Yeah. He does it so well. And so we just had an opportunity where, we and the Lightfold founders got into some conversations and we saw a good opportunity and, we were able to make it happen, and it's been great.
And also it feels like there is no better period than right now to talk about AI and data.
It was very, very good timing because, these guys, they're real experts in data and everything that kind of sits around it. Yeah. And and I've learned a lot from them. So what I've realized is, data very much is its own domain. It's got its own set of tooling, its own set of practices, the ways that you architect that were many of which were different from the ways I kind of learned how to architect as kind of like a Salesforce cloud architect. Yeah. And so very powerful when you can combine the two. And it's just, great timing with the explosion of enterprise available AI. With things like Data Cloud, all of that kind of converging together at the same time has been really good timing.
What do you think? And that's an interesting question. What's the impact on the relationship with Salesforce as a practice to say, okay, we have a external tool Salesforce that we like, and we will incorporate it into our offer panel?
That's an interesting question. You know what? And the way that goes down is depending on how much it's seen as a threat. Okay. And so sometimes you have tooling which are completely complementary, which I believe is the case for the tooling that we support in terms of that kind of holistic data platform. And then you have other things which are really direct competitors, and then that doesn't go down so well. And so as a Salesforce practice, like you could argue like our number one customer is Salesforce. You have to have a good relationship there, and so you need to be very careful about deciding to invest in a practice or technology that is going to compete with one of theirs. So we've always kind of towed the line of only wanting to invest in platforms and technologies which are complementary. And I think that's worked quite well for us. At first, kind of, when we say, okay, we do Snowflake, there was a little bit of Salesforce trying to work out, and obviously Salesforce began to see lots of different groups in Salesforce, different opinions. But there were certainly some people who might have seen that as a little bit of a kind of competing product. I don't think that's the case now. I think they now see it as very complementary. Obviously, Data Cloud has been architected in the way that it's got native zero copy connectivity with Snowflake and other data platforms. And so now it's seen as, I think, only a good thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, weirdly, we don't see HubSpot connector on the Data Cloud platform.
There's lots of stuff like that, right? And bizarrely, there's other kind of integration platforms that you would assume would have a connector with Data Cloud that don't, which is also kind of interesting. But it's still kind of early days.
And do you have like a fun anecdote of product that you built AI related for enterprise? For example, something that's like a nice project or anecdote?
Nice. So I mean, I wish I could go into this more than I can. We've just been so busy, and that it's actually mainly John's kind of group who are really deep into this, but I'm across it at a high level. But we're definitely on the forefront of rolling out AI agents. We've actually got, I think it's like 4 different customers speaking at World Tour. All about AI agents that we've actually built for them. So that's gonna be great. So we're definitely doing some really exciting work here. And the initial focus or kind of push from Salesforce was to actually get a bunch of external agents kind of up and live, right? And so we've got one for a company called Urban Rest. I think Salesforce did a story on them, which is all about, so they rent out apartment blocks. And so it's all about helping, I guess, customers, make bookings, manage their bookings. Caveat, I'm not across the details.
Which is still very interesting.
It's super interesting. And I think what I find amazing, or I think what kind of customers are seeing, is the kind of quality of interaction which you're getting with this kind of current generation of tech is just so much better than what people are used to in kind of traditional chatbot. Like I like to think of it as like the difference between kind of like, Google Home versus like ChatGPT.
That's
Google,
a very good comparison.
You say like, well, what's the weather like? Oh, this. But if you go like slightly off topic, it's like, I don't know how to help you. Whereas GPT will probably help you. There might be some hallucinations or some creativity in the mix, but like it's just such a different experience. Right? And that's what you're getting with this, these kind of new wave of chatbots.
I think I will reuse the comparison.
Go for it.
Because it's very clear and like, it's great.
Or Siri, right? It's just like it can help you with very specific things, but if you go off topic at all, it doesn't know how to help you.
And do you think like from Lightfall, and so because basically like Lightfall is like a group of individuals that are very like talented into a domain, which is AI and data. How do you like, when you do like an acquisition or a partnership with an external agency specialized in a different domain, but quite similar, but a bit different, how do you work with this aspect of culture to build a one unified like organization?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh man, you know what? I'm not the right person to ask, to be honest. It's so obviously okay. So I can address parts of it. So first of all, when you're looking to join forces with any company, you want to make sure that there's a cultural fit. And so that was a big focus of that merger on both sides, to work out, well, is this going to work? Are we going to work well together? And we were able to find very early on a lot of kind of common ground that made us kind of want to continue the conversation. That's like the first thing, right? It's like, is this a good fit? And I think what we have in common is we were all kind of craftsmen. Like we are people who really enjoy our crafts. and kind of love going deep and have a genuine kind of passion for solving problems. And, we had that. And I think that was a core foundation.
Okay. So yeah, like it's like almost the initial assessment you need to have like similar points.
Totally. And do I get on with these people? Do we have similar hobbies, right? I mean, like, can we get on with each other? Can we enjoy working together? That was a big part of that initial, those kind of initial discussions.
Yeah, that must be interesting, I guess. And also I think something that I can see, it's what are our current processes. And for example, for an organization that is very like startup, like the Gmail, the Slack, the nice tool, it can be very hard to switch to the enterprise, like, like single, like custom build software.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Don't you think?
So I agree. This one was a little bit different because the Lightflow crew are so passionate about data analytics.
Okay.
In some ways, their tooling was more sophisticated than us. And so they built some seriously impressive tooling on the Salesforce platform for them to, list out all of these guys go deep. So they literally looked at their domains of work and they broke everything down to the most atomic level. And they basically estimated everything from the ground up. And they did this work, I think, fairly early on, which means that the speed at which they can kind of put together a scope of work is like outstanding because they've literally predefined everything. So it's kind of like a vast menu of, okay, we need 5 of those and 6 of those. And so they did that, but they also built that into the platform. Yeah. And they also built their own kind of like, I guess, kind of version of Jira. So they didn't use Jira. They would literally like have all of their requirements and tickets in the Salesforce platform. And then they had all the logging and tracking of how long it took to actually complete everything. And off the back of that, they built these like seriously sophisticated like CRMA dashboards just for visualizing like the work they have in pipe, like the velocity that their teams are doing. And they use this to make decisions about hiring and that kind of stuff. So these guys are like super data driven, very passionate about their craft, and that stuff was like way more sophisticated than what we had.
What did you use?
We had kind of like a pretty typical stack. So we have, it used to be called Centennia now. It's like a managed package on Salesforce where you can do like manage projects and time cards and that kind of stuff. And use Jira for tickets, and it works fine. It's just like, it's the difference between, I guess, kind of like, I don't know, buying a Toyota off the shop floor versus kind of going home and like putting in a new engine and putting all these details in. And what they had was kind of that, whereas what we had is kind of a bit more of your typical kind of Toyota.
And how did it work? Did you incorporate like this new technology to Cloudworks?
It's a bit of both. So definitely part of the, what part of the benefit of Lightfold and that acquisition is actually learning from each other and taking on. And so one thing that we're currently still in the process of them building out some of that sophistication in our org, so we kind of have that common. But then there's also just like methodology. And they have some really incredible design methodology.
I remember like speaking with you about
they got this great methodology called Tesseract. Again, it's a very just modular way of doing advisory or design engagements, and we saw the benefit in that very early on, and we have adopted it and continuing to evolve it.
Could you explain what it is for like someone that is like not a consultant or part of the Salesforce ecosystem?
Yeah, cool. So Tesseract is a design framework or advisory framework, and essentially what it is it's a series of modules that we may or may not use in an engagement to create a particular outcome. And so again, it's kind of about like breaking a design or advisory engagement into its atomic parts, and then creating specific modules that are incredibly efficient about delivering a particular outcome that you need for that engagement. And so, for example, we've got probably my favorite module is one called Persona. And the way you do this is you are interviewing a single persona group, and you're running a workshop typically just for 1 hour. And you're literally just going for that workshop, and you're just trying to understand through a series of questions, what is it that persona group do? Like, what are their pains? Like, what is the hard stuff or challenges with their job? And what are their gains? So what are the stuff that, if done well, makes them feel like they had a great day, had good job satisfaction? It's so simple. But off the back of that, we create something called a job card, which essentially summarizes those kind of three things.
Yeah.
And then that's incredibly useful context for some of the further modules. So essentially it's you have something that you want to produce.
Yep.
It's you create a module around it to make it like hyper efficient so that you're able to get that desired output in a very efficient manner. And you're kind of trying to eliminate any waste.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
It's sort of, if I try,
go for it.
It's sort of a story generator based on input. So you reference like different input and it generate like stories for you.
Kind of. I mean, we do have modules that will later do that, but it's less about so requirements is going to be one output, but in terms of any design engagement, there's a whole bunch of different design outputs that you might create. But there's a particular order to it. You have to do these things before these things before these things, right? So it kind of builds on each other.
Like the dependency.
Yeah. And so what we did is, or what they did and what we've since kind of incorporated is just kind of formalize that. And build it in a really modular and well-documented way. So that we could just do really great and efficient, valuable design advisory engagements.
And does all the consultants are using this product to deliver like the project?
So at the moment, the framework is really just used for design. And it's still kind of like a continuous process of kind of rolling it out. But more so, we're rolling it out. So it's becoming like our core methodology for how we do any kind of, design engagements.
So it's more at the architect level, or like solution design?
Guess so. Yeah, solution design. So at the moment, once we get into delivery mode, we're just kind of doing, the same things that we've done. All the time. You got, by the time you start delivery, you should have your backlog or a good chunk of your backlog groomed. And then it's just about standard agile ceremonies.
That's a very good idea, because like today, let's say you are a Salesforce practice. If you work with consultant A or consultant B, you might receive a different
People have
experience.
Different approaches and different ways of doing things.
So it's a way to standardize like the delivery across.
It's partly about also just kind of setting up that design engagement, the build engagement for success. And making sure that, no build engagement starts unless they have X, Y, Z, and it's all in this format. That's kind of what it's about. It works really well. We're continuing to evolve it.
Yeah, that's a very good idea actually, because it's compared to probably the other practice. It can be a missing piece to not have this framework to standardize everything.
I think everyone's going to have their own methodology. I think what's different is to what degree is it like documented, well-defined and rolled out within the organization. And that's definitely my experience. I've had a lot of time in practices where you could have multiple ways of doing things in that practice by working with different people based on, how they've done it previously.
But I remember like when I was studying like computer science, we used to have like what we call it's in French, so I'm not sure. It's called a norm. So based on how you write your code, you will have like a specific way of writing your code to standardize. So it's pretty similar, I guess, but like within the Salesforce space.
Yeah, totally. And so I think everyone has their own flavor of this. Like Tesseract is just our flavor, and it has differences to it. But at the end of the day, it's our design methodology.
That makes sense. And do you think so, like Cloudworks in like the 2 to 5 years, what will Cloudworks become? From your point of view, like, is there other area that you would like to develop in terms of technology, which could be like, I'm sure there is plenty, it's endless. Like, or what do you think it will become as
look, good question. Our goal from like the very early days was it's pretty lofty, but we wanted to be the premier kind of, Salesforce business consulting company in the region, in Australia. And like at times in our heads, like we maybe thought, maybe that could be international, or doing certain things. But what we always can come down to is we just want to be known for being able to compete against anyone and win, for being able to do like the full stack of Salesforce services. And to just do it really well, really reliably, but also ensure like a positive experience for our customers as well. And so, that's always what's driven us. And, we keep getting, bigger and bigger, getting to do more exciting things. Obviously, AI and data are going to be a core part of, I think, everyone's future. And so we want to make sure that we're always on the forefront of that and doing really interesting things in that domain as well.
Do you feel like your job evolved with AI? Like in the productivity side?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, and this is really interesting because so what I found is with this technology, you got this kind of group of people who just immediately found it incredibly interesting and just dove in. And I'm one of those groups. So I'm part of that group. I just
like early adopter.
Clearly you are as well, right? There's some people who just saw this and were like, this is amazing, and just dived straight in. And then what's been really interesting to me is if you're part of that group, it's easy to assume that everyone else feels the same way. But what I found is they don't. That it's actually the opposite, in that it's actually most people haven't really thrown themselves in with this technology yet. It feels like.
That's interesting. Probably because the only part that they saw is Galaxy AI on Samsung.
Maybe, or just for whatever reason, like everyone's heard of ChatGPT, but like some people interacted with it and thought, this is incredible, I'm going to use it every day. And some people thought, oh, it's fine, and then just kind of moved on with their life.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because, I'm like truly amazed. Like, for example, like the sitemap of like a personalization project. With like the new model like 03 no, like it's like if you provide the right requirement, it's able to code like the sitemap perfectly. And this will take me 1 week to build like this, and I can do it in 1 day.
So this for me is one of the most fascinating things about AI. Is AI has the ability to take what was traditionally often the hardest thing and make it the easiest thing, which is crazy, because often like a technology comes and it will take something that is hard and then make it easier. But I think it's really interesting that AI literally it doesn't take something easy or medium and make it a bit better. It literally is really good at what is traditionally the hardest thing. And so for example, hard things. So like traditionally making a beautiful piece of art was a hard thing. AI can do it incredibly well. It can write books really well. It can do a lot of things really well that would have taken a lot of time, like the example that you gave, right? And so I think part of the craft is working out where to use it to get the kind of best bang for buck, because sometimes you can make the mistake of assuming that it could make everything. I've definitely had this. I'll be curious to see your opinion. I've definitely had instances where I've used it too much and I've ended up maybe spending more time doing it with the AI approach, and if I just did it without, right? And so part of the trick is working out, does it make sense to use AI? And then if you're going to do it more and more, ideally you should try to create a prompt that you can kind of like reuse to get consistent results.
Like a template.
So I mean, I use it every day for various things in kind of like personal and work life, and I think it's incredible. And what amazes me is just the speed of innovation as well. It's
like
every 6 months, or even sometimes quicker. It just goes up a notch.
That's interesting. And I guess the same from you. Like I use it like everywhere, every time, all the time.
I used it to get a movie recommendation for a kids movie the other day. Like it's anything. Like it's just so good at so many things.
And I'm happy to pay for what I pay for. Like
I think it's an incredible value for money.
Very good. And maybe I was thinking, so like, could you tell us how? So you say you incorporated into your daily life. Do you ensure like other people at Cloudworks are using it as well? Yeah.
Certainly. But you know, mix, I think just like everyone else, is some people will love it and use it for all sorts of things. And other people will just prefer not to. And I think you're just going to find that everywhere. But it's, I mean, the way that I use it personally is I do a lot of architecture, do a lot of kind of scoping. You know, it can do certain things it can't do others. Like I would never ask it to estimate something. Right?
Really?
It's not very good at that. But part of the reason is it doesn't have that data. Like the data it's been trained on, it hasn't been trained on, you know, a vast array of estimates for delivering Salesforce projects. It's good at scope. And so if I give it a scope template and say, here's a scope template I made before for this cloud. I'd like your help to make me one for this cloud. It's pretty good at that. But the way I like to treat it is it's like a conversation. It's not like it's one prompt and done. It's like you're talking to a really smart person and you're kind of using their input to to
like
help you
iterative.
create something. It's
Yep.
iterative, yeah.
And just I guess like to finalize
Yep.
this podcast.
Yeah. Wow.
I think we are about 1 hour. Is that correct? Oh, we are around 1 hour.
You were about
Okay.
Man, that passed quickly.
I spoke with Robin Leonard the other day from AFD Digital, Xenia Digital,
Yeah.
and he estimates that within 3 years, all the humans
Yep.
want jobs
Interesting.
due to the AI.
Okay.
I would like to understand what's your point of view on how AI will replace like the jobs.
Yeah.
And what's the near future and how humans will be impacted by the AI?
Such a good question. Okay, so what I feel about this is I think that no one can really predict what's going to happen, because I think the sorts of capabilities and the speed of innovation, the sorts of things that they're able to do is going at such a speed that I think we just don't know. And I think what we don't know is at what point are we going to start to see formal legislation that is going to try to control some of this, because up until now, it's not really been controlled. Governments have been quite happy to just sort of, let these companies develop these tools at their own pace.
Yeah.
But I think at the speed at which they're going, at some point, those things are going to start to intersect.
Okay.
I think what I think we're going to see in like 2025 is I think it's going to become normal to interact with AI agents.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be normal that you're going to call your bank or your telco and you're going to talk to an agent.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a great experience because you're going to, no waiting in line, you're going to talk to someone immediately, and they're going to be built in such a way that they can do most of the things that you would want it to do. And if they can't, they can pass you to a human.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a great win for consumers.
Yeah.
But I think naturally with any kind of big technology like this, it's going to change some landscapes. And so there's going to be some jobs that are going to be just taken up and adopted by AI.
Yeah.
But and there's some that maybe will be more delayed. I think something which is important to note is sometimes change doesn't move at the speed of the technology.
Okay.
And so I think some people are kind of saying within 3 years, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I think never underestimate that, we're still doing rollouts for Salesforce for people who are using spreadsheets.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
In 2025.
Yeah,
and so it's the technology, it's incredible. It's going to get even more powerful.
Yeah.
But it's going to take time. I think what that really means, who knows? But I'm excited. I hope it means that ultimately it's good for humanity. I hope.
Yeah.
They said about the computers that, with the rise of the computer, people are going to have so much more free time. They're not going to have to work less. Well, that wasn't true.
Isn't true.
I would like that to be true with AI, but that's going to require, I think, greater framework shifts than just rolling it out. You know? So, and I've got 2 kids, and 6 and 4, and it's really interesting and weird for me to consider what are they going to be doing in 10, 15 years? I have no idea.
Mostly for you that is aware and conscious of like the technology that we are living in. I guess like that's even more.
It's going to be, I don't know, man. I really hope it's going to be good. It has the potential to do a lot of good, and I hope that's where it takes us.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. It was very...
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It was great to be here.
Thank you.